Welcome to the Voice of Retail. I'm Michael LeBlanc, your host. The Voice of Retail is produced in conjunction with Retail Council of Canada and is presented by Hale, a performance marketing partner trusted by brands like ASICS, Sage, and Orange Theory to scale with focus and impact. Aamir, welcome to the Voice of Retail podcast. How are you doing this morning?
I am well, thank you.
Well, thanks so much for joining me. Where am I finding you this morning?
Today, I'm actually in Dallas, Texas. So hello from the Lone Star State, the capital of barbecue and guns, I guess.
Well, I love at least one of those things. I'm a big fan of barbecue. I spent some time in Dallas. My partner, Steve Dennis from Remarkable Retail, is based there. So I have partaken in many elements of the Texas barbecue scene. Big fan. So I'm a little envious that you're that close to it. But thanks again for joining me. So tell me a little bit about who you are and what you do for a living.
Excellent. No, thank you. Thank you for having me. So my name is Aamir Lakhani. I'm our global director of threat intelligence and AI research, specifically adversarial AI research. Now, what that means, right, that's like a handful. What that really means is at Fortinet, I work for an organization called FortiGuard Labs, which is our R&D side of the house. It's really our job to really understand what the bad guys are doing. What are the threats? What are the techniques? What are their motivation? And when I mean bad guys, I really could mean anyone from sitting in a basement, your old traditional bad guy, the 14-year-old sitting in the basement to state-sponsored attacks and everything in between. Most of these days, we concentrate more on threat actors, the cyber criminal actors, the ones that are actually making a lot of money, really around billions and billions of dollars every year globally around threats and cybercrime and fraud.
And hang on that for a second. The state actors or non-state actors. I mean, a lot of this money goes into funding terrorism and other places, right? So, it doesn't all go that way. Sometimes it goes into Rolls Royces and Maseratis, but a lot of these ill-gotten gains go to bad places, right? So this is just, it's important work for you guys to do, right?
Absolutely. You never know where the money could end up, what kind of harm it could do. You're right, not only from terrorists, but from human trafficking to even just hurting just a lot of productivity in many businesses and countries around the world. That's why we want to really understand everything we can about those threats, where they're coming from, really understand the logic, open up that logic so we can protect against that and protect our customers from being attacked.
Now, it says on LinkedIn you're a registered ethical hacker. Have you always been an IT person? You always been interested in both technology, but also this element around technology?
I would say so. My dad always reminds me of a story when I was 3 years old, 4 years old, that I kept on staring at the VCR. I don't know if anyone remembers what a VCR is these days, but he said I kept on staring at a VCR, wondering how it worked, and then I used to just shove other things into it. And he told me he had to open it up one day because I ended up shoving a whole bunch of Kit Kats into the VCR. Okay. But ever since that day, I guess I've always been fascinated about how technology works, but more so why does technology break? And that was just a natural progression for understanding why computers break and how attackers get around cyber defenses. And that's what got me into it. And as an ethical hacker, you pretty much need to understand all the techniques the bad guys are doing. So you need to understand those, recreate those, understand how to perform those as well. They said they sometimes say the best defense is a good offense, right? And understanding what the offense is.
Interesting. Now tell me all about Fortinet. I know a bit about them for sure, but talk about scope, scale. I think you're based in Dallas, right? The organization's based in Dallas.
Well, Fortinet as a company, our headquarters is actually in California, in Sunnyvale, California. Okay. Our R&D headquarters, where we do the majority of the kind of the research area, that's based out of right outside of Vancouver and Burnaby in British Columbia. But we're a global company. We have pretty much people and offices and customers all over the world. We're actually one of the largest cybersecurity companies in the world. From a firewall perspective, I think I was reading we have over 50% of the firewall market. That means every other firewall in the world is going to be a Fortinet firewall, which also means that we have just a lot of insight, a lot of telemetry, a lot of data that we're getting from cybersecurity around the planet. So we understand what's happening with cybersecurity. Our goal is to essentially protect the planet from cyber attacks.
Now, a question for you just before we dive into this report and some of the things you've learned about holiday behavior is there enough sharing at your level between the different organizations who are doing this? I know that in LP communities, for example, in physical retail, they often share about incidents even between, within the industry and within retailers, because it's often the case that, roving gangs go from city to city and retailer to retailer. So it's advantageous to share. Is there a level of that happening in the cybercrime resolution or protection area?
From the good guys, absolutely. I would say it's definitely something at Fortinet we consider, custodians of a lot of this data, and it's our duty to share that. So we have multiple alliances set up, sharing with different retailers, with different leaders in the industry, with companies as well, with government organizations. Even more so, people are kind of surprised that we even share with our competitors. It's funny because a lot of these companies, we compete with each other in a lot of areas, but we also share this information. We try and basically, rise the tide, so all ships rise as well. We don't believe that what makes us different or what makes us better is just hoarding information. We believe our technology, our research into AI, our research into machine learning, our research into cyber defenses is what makes us better than our competitors. But we believe everyone should have that information. Sometimes people are surprised if I discover something bad that's happening in the world. If I see an active attack, I am usually calling my competitors, telling them, "Listen, I found something bad. Your customers are probably going to hit that as well."
Yeah.
And
are you seeing the same thing? Right? I mean that
exactly
validation probably process. Super. That's interesting. Let's get into this report on cybercrime and threats to retailers. You put out a report in, I think it was November. And let's talk about the key highlights in the report, and then we can kind of talk about what you saw over this holiday season. So talk about this holiday report on threats.
Yeah, right. I would say I'm not surprised with this year because we've seen this trend occurring for probably over 10 years now, but every holiday season is definitely Christmas, no pun intended, for the bad guys, because they know they can take advantage of many businesses, many individuals into different types of scams. And really that's what this report showed, is that, we expect, we expect every year scams to increase. No different this year. Scams did increase, and attackers got pretty sophisticated and pretty crafty with their scams as well. They registered new websites. They made things very urgent. They not only attacked individuals, they went to corporations and started testing their security systems and their defenses as well. And the whole goal is to attack organizations, attack individuals, try and make the quick buck, but also try and land plants and permanent, I would say, residency in organizations and large corporations for future attacks as well, possibly ransomware and other types of sophisticated attacks. But, the sad part is every holiday season, people are going to be rushing out to buy things, and attackers want to try and take a little bit of that pie.
So we're coming out of the heaviest holiday selling period this season, as you say. We're talking just late here in mid-December. So a lot of the energy has happened, but still to happen. And of course, e-commerce thrives any month of the year. Now you talk about unprecedented volumes of, and I want you to break these down for us. Stolen, for people who aren't in this space, but want to understand, stolen credentials, deceptive domains, and of course, AI-driven fraud, something we've been thinking about. If we're good at AI and all this thing, the bad guys start using it. So talk about those three things. First of all, stolen credentials, and how does that get used, and what should retailers be watching out for?
Yeah, there's a funny saying now that hackers don't hack you anymore. They just simply log in to your accounts. What a lot of people do is they start using the same usernames and passwords across multiple sites. So what attackers do is they just kind of look at leaks. There's a lot of websites over the years that have leaked their passwords. Unfortunately, they've gotten their password databases compromised. Attackers create a list of these. They store these for many, many years, and then they try this across multiple websites, your bank sites, other retail sites, your corporate VPN sites, your corporate login sites, as much as they can try. All this is automated, so they're not like logging in through a keyboard one by one. They just run a script, get some lunch while these scripts will run across hundreds of thousands of accounts across tens of thousands of websites. Once they find something that they can log into, then at that point they try and figure out what's the value that I can get by logging into this website. If it's a banking website, they may transfer money. If it's a retail website, they may order things to different addresses. If it's your corporate website or VPN, they may try and get into your corporation and steal intellectual data. So that's a big thing.
I guess the big prevention, both for us as consumers and as businesses, is two-factor validation. Kind of puts a pretty good roadblock on that. Yeah, because I know many places I go, I need to type in the it's connected to my phone. I guess that's not foolproof, but is it a speed bump at least?
Absolutely. Two-factor authentication should be minimum. The minimum you should try and use everywhere. If possible, I tell people don't use SMS text messaging, because there's a lot of problems that could potentially create. It actually motivates attackers to try and steal your phone number as well. But if you can use things like Google Authenticator or some of these applications that are available, that's a lot better. If you do have to use text messaging, maybe use a virtual number instead of your cell phone, like Google Voice or something like that. So, but it definitely helps.
Are those authenticators? What I worry about, and I know that the people put a lot of thought into these. That if you put everything in those authenticators, then they have like a master key. But are you confident those authenticators are something we should all turn to? I see them for all the major platforms and Apple and all those guys. You would recommend us using that as consumers, yeah?
I do recommend that, but you are right. It does absolutely, have a risk, right? What happens if your master password is compromised, or what happens if your authentication app is compromised? Luckily, is like these authentication apps, right? The people behind them, especially the mainstream ones like Google and Apple, they realize that a lot of people are putting trust in them, so they're probably investing a lot more in like security and testing these apps than other people, right? So that's a good thing. But at the same time, you still need to keep an eye out on things. You need to still keep an eye out on your transactions, your bank accounts, as well as just understanding what's going on. Like check your order histories on major sites, just to keep on top of things.
Right. Now let's talk about AI-driven fraud. I mean, we're 14 minutes in, whatever we are into the podcast. Let's dive into that a little bit. It feels like as good as AI can be for accelerating business processes and making things efficient, it can be the same thing for the bad guys. How on a scale of 1 to 10? Let me ask you this question: how worried are you about AI-driven fraud? Scale of 1 to 10.
Scale to 1 to 10, I would say like 100 or 1,000, or like ever how I can count. It's scary. I mean, I can tell you, like, just from I've seen fraud like in a corporation, in a business, where a secretary has gotten a phishing email, a fake email from their CEO, and they of course alerts go out. Especially if it's someone like, hey, the CEO says, so please send lots of money, but then afterwards the CEO gets the secretary would get a phone call that sounds like the CEO, because now they're using AI to mimic the voice, deep voice or deep fake, or a video call, even a WhatsApp call, right, to the secretary that looks like the CEO and like has the same face and same voice. Like, how do you protect against that, right? We have AI.
How do you protect against that? I don't know.
It's hard. There's not like a foolproof bullet solution. And then on top of this, there's now essentially AI agents can like look at your social media, look at what you're interested in. Oh, you're interested in basketball or hockey or something like that. And then it can start like customizing attacks for that, like just to,
hey, did you see the results of the hockey game last night? And what did you think of the Leafs or whatever? And then, oh, by the way, send me all the money in your bank account. Jeez.
Exactly.
Hey, let's looking back at 2025. Here we are towards the end of 2025. So this is a good discussion to have as we get to reflect on the year. What did retailers get right? And what do they underestimate the most about the scale or sophistication of today's threat environment?
So I think what retailers got right is that they, first of all, they kind of understood, they learned from their past mistakes, right? They learned that, hey, there's going to be a lot of scams. Let's slow down a little bit. Like, if we're seeing things go to an address that hasn't been used before by this individual, let's go ahead and slow down and ask for like extra proof for authentication. Let's go ahead and make sure that, they're logging in correctly. Let's go ahead and, put in more education. I've seen a lot of retailers put in education themselves about scams going in. So that's a good thing. At least retailers know that there's, some problem out there, which a lot of times, they wanted to ignore and put their heads in the sand. So they're not doing that anymore, which I'm really proud of. On top of that, I think consumers are also finally, getting the hint, hey, there's things I can do. I can, I should try and use credit cards, not bank account transfers and not debit cards, which is still really difficult for some people not to use, right? But credit cards do give you a little more protection. Some people are now understanding that, hey, my banks may provide a temporary credit card number, or I could go to, some of these bank websites and generate a temporary time-limited credit card number. So that kind of helps from people recharging you and rescanning you and things like that.
I've heard people do, sometimes they get a credit card and they only use it for online transactions so they can kind of keep track of everything.
That's a good idea. I think that's a really, really good idea.
Now for retailers, are they, it feels like it's an arms race in technology. And I know when I talk to retailers, they're like, we know we have to invest in this. We don't want to over-invest in this because there's kind of a declining marginal return if we spend too much time and effort on this, but at the same time, we need to get that Goldilocks investment and time thing. So what are you seeing in terms of investment in the technologies? Is it keeping pace? Is it at the right pace? And is your advice to, what's your advice to that for 2026 and beyond?
Yeah, I think obviously it depends on the retailer and where they're at in their life cycle of investments as well. But for the most part, I would say at least the big guys seem to be getting it. They understand that there's a lot of technology solutions out there. They understand that being attacked and their customers being attacked can actually mean a lot of different things, right? If they lose, if their customers lose confidence in themselves, it's probably going to decline business. If attackers get into their systems and compromise their systems, they could be spending, millions and millions of dollars, like kind of figuring that out and cleaning those systems up and restoring those systems. And that could possibly result in downtime where they lose business or have to shut down as well. So I'm starting to see definitely a more investment in different types of technology. And then also there is a lot of technology coming out. So it is definitely hard for retailers to keep pace with, like, understanding all the solutions that are out there, which solutions are, more marketing buzzwords versus like actual like help. So it's definitely difficult for them, but at least I see an effort for it, and they seem to at least they have good alliances and partnerships where they seem to be able to get educated and be able to get the right information now.
Your report talked about 1.5 million stolen e-commerce credentials, and that's a pretty gnarly one. Is there a different thinking going on around how retailers rethink their authentication and account security strategies outwards to consumers heading into 2026?
We are seeing some retailers already implement like security keys and passwordless authentication. So the biggest problem is when these credentials get stolen, what we're talking about is usernames and passwords being stolen. Passwords essentially getting compromised. So the thinking is, if passwords are getting compromised, what about if we get rid of passwords completely, right? Can we find another better way to like authenticate our users and and basically help with this identity problem besides passwords? And if we get rid of passwords, then you don't have to worry about a password being compromised because it's not being
worried about
used
something else. But that'll take time. There'll always be something. But I'm kind of surprised that we haven't gotten past passwords earlier, because they do seem, well, robust initially. I mean, we talked about these authentication devices. Is that the next thing beyond passwords? Even on my iPhone, I like the biometrics on it and biometrics on my laptop. Are these things starting to? I remember back in the day when I was in e-commerce, someone pitched very, very early, probably too early, a device you'd plug into your computer USB that you could put your thumb on, like a kind of manual on websites, biometric stuff. Is there any traction to any of that stuff?
We're starting to see that. I think there's a lot of just, training, a change. Any change is like, inconvenience, right? And a lot of consumers, when they're going to retail websites, they're not corporations, they're not business users. They just want to buy something really fast, right? They want to buy something from Amazon, they want to buy send flowers, right? Right. So once we introduce that inconvenience, that's what retailers are afraid of is, are they going to lose business that way? So there's a little bit of a cultural change that needs to happen. But we're starting to see a little bit of a shift towards it. A lot of websites these days now, you probably have the option, you've probably seen it yourself, where you have a passkey you can do instead of a website, which means you can now authenticate where you put in your username and you get like a pop-up on your phone for biometrics or your face scan or something like that.
You're a fan of that, right? I mean, it's pretty clear you're a fan of those kind of things, yeah?
Absolutely. And I think it's absolutely needed. We need to get past passwords because we're not going to fix the password issue, and that's what causes a lot of people to get compromised.
We'll be right back after these messages. The Voice of Retail is brought to you by Hale, the partner behind some of the fastest growing DTC and retail brands in North America. Hale is recognized for senior teams who cut out the noise and keep their focus on what matters most: growth. Their approach is based on outcomes, not hours. They are selective with who they partner with, bringing speed, accountability, and a clear strategy to every engagement. Paid media, content, performance, all of it connects directly to real results. That's why brands like A6 Sage and Orange Theory choose Hale to help them scale. Learn more at wearehale.com. I've got retail listeners who are of all sizes, so small, medium, and super large. Many Canadian retailers rely on platforms, whether it's Shopify or whatever. And I think their assumption there is it's handled upstream. Somebody else is taking care of this. This is what I'm paying for from these platforms. Did you learn anything about 2020 or 2025 that that revealed about shared responsibility, where retailers do need to take more ownership, or can they just pass that and rely on the big platforms who are mega platforms and probably have many people who specialize in this? Talk about the platform and the retailer connection in that context.
No, I think we have to have a shared responsibility. First of all, I think consumers can't just put their heads in the sand anymore. They can't just expect the retailers to, protect their information, even if they're going, even if they're only doing business with well-known, reputable retailers. They still have to take a little bit of responsibility on their own, as well as retailers understanding they are in a position where they need to take a very active effort in protecting data. So I'm seeing, I saw in 2025 at least the start of the first time where there wasn't a fight towards this. There wasn't finger pointing. It was like, hey, we both on both sides need to do some work. And as more people get educated on both sides, I see it coming together. So absolutely, it's tough
though for that. Like if you're an indie, you're just never going to get to it, right? You really got to rely really on the platforms, right? I mean, what can small retailers do? They're balancing their inventories, they're hired people. They are not ready for doing stuff for security. Give me one or two things they can do. Like you're an independent retailer, you got a website, it's you and your couple of partners, and that's it. What's the one thing they should be doing? Let's assume they're on like a Shopify, but what's the one or two things that they just need to make time to do, even though they don't have the expertise, nor do I, or nor do many. I think so. First of all, the good thing is these platforms are definitely catering towards the smaller retailers. So the Shopify's, hosting it on Google Cloud Services or Microsoft Azure or AWS. Now there's like built-in tools. Like when you use the e-commerce tools, they have built-in best practices for small retailers to follow, where they're taking a lot of the burden off the small retailers. And as long as you're in their platform and like in their environment and haven't done too many crazy things outside that and using their best practices, right, you're actually doing a pretty good job. So I think what retailers need to do is, if they decide like, hey, I'm too small to really invest in this, but I am going to be using a platform, then go ahead and use a reputable platform like the ones we had mentioned, as right, well as like using their best practices. And yes, there's probably going to be a little bit of investment that they need to do to at least do some spot checks or some like
audits, like an annual audit, like maybe right before the big sales come on, the holiday season starts, and just to make sure they're in good shape and fix any issues that may be outstanding.
So I know there's all kinds of different payments. You've mentioned a few. We've talked about a few on the pod. Let's talk about buy now, pay later. So we're seeing some data, not surprisingly, that the BNPL is becoming a bigger part of holiday spending. What are the risks in the buy now, pay later space? They're big platforms themselves. It's an integration into platforms. But what risks are you seeing, and what advice do you have for retailers using BNPL?
Yeah, unfortunately, buy now, pay later, or like any financing, type scams are on the rise because they kind of understand that they're kind of playing on the heartstrings on a lot of people. Like the motivation is like, hey, making sure you get immediate satisfaction, but and they kind of understand that, so they're really looking at people's behavior and they're looking at psychology. These scam artists, the threat actors, the bad guys, they're masters in psychology, right? So they understand like, hey, we could do a buy now, pay later, and give you like a huge special or a discount if you use that. But you have to use that within the next like 10 minutes or 5 days or 3 days. They're using that time factor to basically create that sense of urgency. And we've seen that across scams, all through the holiday season in 2025, is that sense of urgency is usually kind of one of the biggest tricks that scammers are using. All throughout e-commerce. So, expecting all this for 2026 is to basically motivate them to not really think and kind of make an action right away. And that's where when you get scammed.
Let's talk about last thing in the big world of evolution and the big world of evolving threats is these AI agents that we're all reading about that consumers can use to go find them the best deals or the best value or whatever. So where do you see threats around this AI agent type of shopping behavior?
So in AI, we have this concept called AI poisoning, which means that we have false data going around. I used AI agents like in my holiday season in 2025. I remember I was actually in the market for a brand new monitor. So I did a whole bunch of research. Once I wanted to know what monitor I wanted, I actually used AI agents to figure out where the best price was with what retailers and picked a reputable retailer that I knew of. And I saved quite a bit of money. I actually saved like $800 on my monitor versus buying it from the manufacturer directly from a very, very reputable retailer. But at the same time, attackers know that this is going on. They're poisoning these results, right? So they're feeding AI enough information so the results that you get back, may not be a reputable retailer, or it may not be the reputable website directly linking to a retailer, and that's scary. On my end, when I looked at the results back, I made sure that I looked at retailers that I personally thought were reputable. I didn't click on the links directly presented to me by AI. I actually went to that retailer's website directly and looked up that information. So I did a little bit of work. I kind of naturally do that because I'm kind of trained on that. Yeah. But that's
if you're not doing that kind of thing, nobody is. Let me tell you, listening to you. Think about that though from the retailer's perspective. So they're now meeting this new intermediary, these AI shopping bots. What's the risk to the retailer that they should be aware of?
Well, the risk to retailers, first of all, their websites and the price list could be, potentially scraped. Retailers always have to worry about that, but it's much, much harder to protect against that without the right tools and technology. And that does require investment. On top of that, their customers may be, under the impression that they're doing business with that retailer, be very, very upset at them, when something goes wrong. And in reality, there may not be like a relationship between the consumer and the retailer because it's a relationship between the consumer and a scammer. So they have to kind of be aware of that as well. That's a lot of work. I don't know of a solution that's going to fix that overnight besides small little investments and once again keeping on top of everything and like monitoring everything. But it's going to be a very, very tough ask. Technology needs to catch up a little bit to help the retailers out.
All right, last question for you. If you were sitting down briefing a Canadian retail board today or executives coming out of what you've learned in the 2025 and 25 holiday season, what would you say? Here's the 3 things you need to do. Maybe you're doing them already, but here's the 3 things you just absolutely need to do as table stakes to be safe or safer in 2026.
Yeah, I would say my first message would be don't let anything discourage you, because the news and the media is always saying like attackers are getting more sophisticated, they're using more technology, and the attacks are increasing. That is true, but don't let it discourage you, because we are, I believe, on the right path. The first thing I would say is education, right? If I could say three things, that would be education, but that's in three ways. Educate yourselves, right. Educate your consumers, right? And then also educate what's going on around yourself. So education is going to be a big deal on understanding what the defenses are, as well as what the attacks are, and why attackers are actually doing certain types of attacks. So that's a big one. The second thing I would say is, don't be shy about investing in new technology, especially AI-driven technology, because that's what's going to give us kind of a leg up on the game. With the volume and the velocity of attacks, there's no way just a stock is going to be able to do it. There's no way you're going to be able to do it without help of AI. So I think we need to, get into that realm and kind of embrace that. And then like the third thing is, and it's new and definitely, putting your toes first before you, jump into the pool. But I would say don't shy away from automation. A lot of people are afraid of automation. And yes, when automation does go bad, it can definitely create havoc in an entire organization. But automation is also going to help protect businesses, protect data, protect that intellectual data, and also potentially save your business from an attack. If an attack happens like at 3 a.m. at night, you don't want to be making calls to figure out, hey, should I do something, or who's going to be able to shut something down or reroute something? You want that to happen automatically, or you may not have a business by 8 a.m. in the morning. So don't shy away from automation.
All right. If people want to learn more, thanks, Aamir, for all this. If people want to learn more about you, get in touch, or learn more about Fortinet, where do they go?
So I would say our R&D website, FortiGuard.com, is the best way. You can read all about our research, about like the latest attacks, about what the threat actors are doing, what the bad guys are doing. And our main website, of course, Fortinet.com, where we talk, which is our company's website, where all our products and our blogs are on. And so I say, don't hesitate.
Fantastic. Are you a LinkedIn guy? Do you post on LinkedIn? Is that a good way to get a hold of you? Somebody wants
Absolutely. I'm definitely on LinkedIn, so that's probably the best way to get a hold of me. You can find me on X.com and some of the other social media channels, but these days I'm probably more LinkedIn than anything else.
All right. Amazing. Well, listen, thanks so much for joining me on The Voice of Retail. Super interesting. Great way to wrap the year in terms of getting ready for 2026. And thanks so much for sharing your insight. And I wish you and the team continued success, because when you guys are successful, so are retailers. So thanks again for joining me on the pod.
Hey, thank you. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of The Voice of Retail. If you haven't already, follow on your favorite podcast platform so new episodes will land automatically each week. And be sure and check out my other retail industry media properties, the Remarkable Retail Podcast with Steve Dennis and the Global E-Commerce Leaders Podcast. I'm your host, Michael LeBlanc, Senior Retail Advisor, Keynote Speaker. If you want more content or chat, follow me on LinkedIn. Safe travels, everyone.